On this episode of Hot Rod Hoarders, I take my 6-year-old daughter on a date to a junkyard. Let's go see what we found.
We are lost. Help! Told you we're lost. Hello.
Okay. Moving on. Even though I travel to car shows, I work in the garage a lot, I do try to include my family as much as I can. And I've got a 6-year-old daughter and I've got a little boy on the way. And I do everything I can to try to make sure that my daughter knows that I love these cars, that this is not just a little hobby that's going to pass someday. I mean, this is a lifestyle. And, you know, I think she gets it. She's around it enough to where she understands it as much as any 6-year-old girl can. And, you know, I do try to include her in some things that I do. As long as it's safe for her and sounds like a fun idea, we go for it. And I actually had an open day where I didn't have anything going on, she didn't have anything going on, and I offered to her the chance to go walk around in an old car junkyard. And even though most 6-year-old girls wouldn't get excited about that, I think she was mostly excited about some one-on-one time with me, and I was excited about one-on-one time with her. So we really had a fun day, and I just wanted to show you some of that and explain a little bit about the collection that you're going to see. So this junkyard is owned by Charles Fisher out of Evansville, Tennessee. He's been around for a long time. His dad actually started the junkyard in the late 60s. And he actually has more than one junkyard now here in Rhea County. And he's got one that's, you know, modern vehicles, and then he's still got his dad's place, which is all old cars. Pretty much everything here is, I would say, late 70s and earlier. There are a few exceptions here and there, but for the most part we're looking at 50s, 60s, and 70s American cars. There's not a whole lot of imports in there. It's almost all Chevrolet, Pontiac, Ford, and Mopar stuff. And we got a chance to walk around. He was gracious enough to kind of turn us loose in there and just let me and Carlee go enjoy a few hours out in the woods and explore. You know, we got to check out every square inch of this place, at least as far as we could go, as far as like you know, woods and briars and things like that. We didn't get too adventurous, but we did check out a lot of cars. And you know, he's got a killer collection of stuff inside the building and out. You know, stuff that they've been accumulating for years and years and years. So I'd only visited this junkyard one time before, and it was when I was a teenager. I was looking for some parts for a '56 Chevy, and he had a couple of Tri-5s in the yard. So it gave me an excuse to go roam around just a little bit and see what all he had in there. And I got my trim pieces that I needed, but I also, one of the cars that really stood out to me was either a 68 or 69 Chevelle Super Sport 396 that was sitting there, and it was mostly complete, rusty, rough, you know, it was not a pristine car, but just seeing a rare car like that just sitting in a junkyard, I mean, it was kind of a moment that really stuck with me. One of the cars that was right out close to the road was a 1957 Chevy Nomad. And these cars are pretty rare, very highly sought after, because they're really special. They're kind of like sport station wagons. You know, Chevrolet made station wagons in 55, 6, and 7, but they also made these Nomads, which had special body style all their own. I mean, they had special parts front to back. And the 57, I mean, that's an iconic Chevrolet. I mean, you don't get a whole lot better than that. Also in the collection, I saw a bunch of first generation Pontiac Firebirds. Those cars are getting hard to find. And these, of course, they're rough, and there's a reason they're in a junkyard. I mean, there's parts missing and stuff like that. Lots of good parts laying around. You know, and regardless of the fact, even if they are rusty, they're cool to look at.
Daddy,
Mm-hmm.
this say junkyard, you really mean it. It's junky.
Classic. In the collection, there's also a lot of GM A-bodies, a few Chevelles, a few Pontiac Tempests, some Oldsmobiles, Buicks, two-door, four-door, lots of different varieties there, and different levels of completion. Some of them are stripped down to nothing. Some of them look like, you know, they were almost driven into place and parked. But either way, a lot of cool 68 to 72 A-bodies in there. I never did find that Super Sport Chevelle that I saw years ago when I visited this yard, but I did see a big block Chevelle just hanging out. Had 396 badges on the front fender, and you know, just neat to see that kind of stuff. The motor was long gone, but it was neat to see that and see manual steering, manual brakes, you know, typical hot rod stuff of the era. Just for fun, I decided to run the numbers on this 68 Chevelle. Judging by the trim tag, it's got the number 13437. That means it was a 300 Deluxe Sport Coupe, and it was an 8-cylinder car. We don't know exactly what engine this car would come with, but we do know it was a V8. The 770 code means it had dark blue cloth interior, and the CC means it was ermine white. One particular A-body car that got my attention was an old Pontiac dirt track car that Charles used to race years ago. And he said it had a 428 Pontiac engine in it. And he said this was a really good running car, that it had a lot of good trick suspension underneath it. And it actually still has a Franklin quick change underneath it with wide 5 hubs. You know, you can check out that roll cage, the cutout fender wells. I mean, this thing was a pretty intense race car for back then.
Oh dear. How are we even gonna walk? There's too many cars. Hey, Daddy. Daddy, I see a hand car in there.
Go find it. How are we gonna get to it? We better go this other way.
No.
Let's go this way.
This is a shortcut.
Well, that's probably where all the briars are.
Right. Yep. No way. Don't tell me you just videoed me.
Yes.
Oh boy. There's a pizza mirror. And this is also where the bars are.
Yeah. Probably don't need to go all the way in there.
Come on, let's go see the car.
It doesn't even look like a cool car to me.
To me, it looks like an old car.
Well, it's not that old. Let's go look at some other stuff.
No! Come on!
Okay, whatever you say. You're gonna walk right into the briar patch. See a 1979 Cadillac.
Hey, it looks good. I like it.
Okay, let's go then. Get a move on.
You said you like junky cars.
Well, you're right about that.
Well, that is a junky car.
Well, yeah, but it's got better junky cars than this.
Wow.
Yep. Oh, and it's even the Seville diesel.
Oh my, look at the tires. The tires.
Let's get out of here.
Daddy. Move.
What?
Come on.
Go.
Come on! Another briar.
Oh, briar number 2. Oh, here's 57 Ford. Yes.
When I was coming all the way down here, far was that.
Really? Let's see what it is. See if you can.
Are all these red things briars?
No.
You're good. Got it. Take your hands out of your pockets.
Why?
Because that will catch you when you fall. If you fall. When you fall. Come on.
Fall when you fall.
Come on over. There you go. You got it. Okay, we got us a convertible here. Somebody tried to take the door off of it.
I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Daddy.
You better be careful. No, you need to jump off of there. I think you do. You're gonna fall. Jump. Jump. Okay. Moving on.
Motor.
Yeah, all over the place. Motors, fenders, bumpers. Big Imperial, very cool. This big old car, the big Imperial Crown, and Barracuda, cool.
Barracuda.
Another Barracuda.
Barracuda. Barracuda.
Enough playing around. A tub of water if you need something to drink.
Ew. I want to drink that.
Maybe it's for the goats.
What?
Maybe that's for the goats.
Probably not because they're not here. Ugh. What happened there?
I don't know. Something hit it.
Told you we're lost.
How are we going to get back? Follow the goats.
Goats aren't out here. We're lost.
Stop.
Yes, we are lost. Help!
Oh, you're silly.
Help!
Help.
Charles took us inside the shop there, and he had an early 60s Dodge Lancer. They're kind of goofy looking cars. I mean, he admitted they're so ugly that they're cool, and he's wanting to build a pretty cool street strip car. It's got a slant six in it with a 4-speed. He's got all the floor pans cut out of it right now, but the rest of the body's really solid. Speaking of Mopar, Charles has a lot of Mopars in this yard. He's got a bunch of early A-body stuff like the little cars, Plymouth Valiant, Dodge Darts. He's got Plymouth Barracudas, a lot of the early ones. He's got several of those. Especially in the back corner of the yard, there was probably 6 or 8 of them all lined up in a row. And, you know, lots of good parts there, lots of good pieces if somebody's building one of those cars, because unlike my case, like with Corvettes and Camaros and Chevelles, you know, there's tons of parts for those cars. Well, if you're building an early A-body, yeah, not so much. You know, not very much parts availability for those cars. So these junkyard cars, they're pretty valuable. There's lots of pieces that are usable on these things. Another cool Mopar is this Plymouth GTX. Still got the cool Plymouth lettering on the quarter panel. And according to Charles, this was a 383 4-speed car, which makes it even cooler. One of the most solid bodies in this whole junkyard is this Dodge Challenger. I mean, I didn't get a super close look under the hood or inside of it, but man, this thing is really buildable. Very complete. It's not wrecked all to pieces. It's not rusted to the ground. This is a neat car. And this completely stripped out Tri-5 2-door post sitting here, I'm pretty sure that's the one that I got the trim pieces off of many years ago. It was the little beltline trim that goes right beneath the window, and I had a 2-door post 56 Chevy, and I'm pretty sure this is the car we got it off of. We spotted a few Ford Torinos. Those things are really cool, whether they're in a junkyard or on the street. They always get my attention. I mean, I'm not even a Ford guy, and those are some good looking cars. An early Camaro got my attention because it was painted in what looked to be Hugger orange, but it had a couple of layers of paint underneath it. And you know, that just tells me that this was somebody's hot rod. Who knows what it went through in its lifetime, but it's definitely pretty much put out to pasture now, I guess you could say. It's had 1/4 panel cut off of it, no doors, no front sheet metal, no anything, but still cool to see. The code tells us that it's a 67 Camaro. The 12637 tells us it's a coupe with custom interior. It was built in the Norwood, Ohio plant. And then the 765 means that it had black custom buckets. The C2 paint code tells us it was ermine white with a black vinyl top. And the other codes that are listed in the different groups tells us it had tinted windows, a fold-down rear seat, a 4-speed manual transmission with a console, and this was a Rally Sport car. Since there is no code in Group 4, that means that it was either a 6-cylinder car or a 327 car. Any car with a much more high-performance engine, it would have had a special code in Group 4. One of the things I like to see is the dealership emblem or dealership decal that was put on cars when they were sold new or sold used. And the cool thing about going to a local junkyard is you see a lot of local cars. I saw some from the Beard Walters dealership, saw some from other dealerships here in town, saw some from way out of town. But it's just neat to walk through here and see these cars and think that somebody local drove this thing. I mean, this was their everyday driver, and then all of a sudden the engine blew up, or all of a sudden something broke on it that was too expensive to fix, and it ended up here in the junkyard. So seeing these things and just thinking about how people disposed of these cars, it's a little bit heartbreaking in a way, but again, it's a business. I mean, junkyards have been in business for a lot of years. This particular one has been in business since the late 60s. And you know, selling these piece by piece, part by part, has paid the bills for the Fisher family. And you know, it is still neat to walk through here and see what's left behind. And Charles does still sell parts from here. I mean, it's not quite as busy as his modern junkyard in town, but it's still a viable business. It's still a place where people can get parts that they can't get anywhere else. So aside from a few scrapes from walking through the briars and stuff like that, Carlee had a great time. I mean, she was a trooper. We spent about 3 hours walking in the woods, and I don't know any other 6-year-old girl that could put up with that, but we had a really good time. And there were a few moments where she was ready to go, but every time we rounded a corner, we found something else fun to get into. And Charles had a horse and some goats and a cat that kind of kept her attention when things got a little bit boring for her. And we just had a good time. And I really hope for her that this memory sticks with her, that she'll always remember some of these times where it's just me and her and we go do something fun that's car related. And I just want that to always be a reminder for her that we enjoyed time together. I want to say a huge thank you to Charles Fisher. And he's just an awesome guy. He's a Christian, and he fully believes that every piece in this junkyard is a blessing from the Lord. And I'm right there with him. We've both been able to pay our bills. We've been able to make a living fooling with old cars. I mean, that is the ultimate blessing. And for me, you know, I get to tell car stories in many different ways, in magazines or on these videos, and I would do it for free. But instead, I'm able to make a little bit of money at it, and that just encourages me to do more. So just wanted to share it here. I appreciate you watching. If you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. You'll get a notification every time we post a video. And remember, weekly videos every Friday. Get a new video from the Hot Rod Hoarder YouTube channel. I appreciate you watching. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Comment below. Let me know what you want to see. Thank you for watching.